In this video, I'm going to give you my full review of the BMW R18 Roctane. First, I'll go over some brief history of the bike, and then I'll go into a mix of specifications and my opinions to keep things easy to watch. All up, I've had the bike for a couple of weeks and done a variety of riding on it, from motorway, B roads, tight country roads, and riding at night. BMW currently offers 5 versions of the R18, the R18 Standard, the Classic, the B, Transcontinental, and the one here, the Roctane, which BMW are pitching as their tourer, bagger, cruiser, Batman bike of the bunch, with its mini ape hanger bars, bigger wheels than standard, dragster style seat, and luggage boxes. If you're into R18s, you probably already know that the R18 draws significant inspiration from the BMW R5, which was first introduced in 1936. In 2019, BMW unveiled the concept art at the, I can't pronounce that, so there you go. BMW officially launched the R18 in 2020 as their flagship cruiser, aimed at competing in the American-dominated cruiser market alongside brands like Harley-Davidson and Indian Motorcycle. Didn't read it anywhere, but I assume Roctane is a combination of rock, which the engine does when you start it up, and rev it when you're shifting down, and octane, so yeah. Engine on the bike is an 1802cc 2-cylinder pushrod operated boxer and is the biggest production boxer BMW make. The Big Donk produces 91 horsepower at 4,750 RPM and 158 Newton meters of torque at 3,000 RPM. Engine is Euro 5 Plus, which if you don't know is stricter than standard Euro 5. Bike has 3 riding modes: rock, roll and rain, rock being the performance one. I mainly use the bike in roll mode. I tried rock mode, but I don't think it suits the way I like to ride cruisers. Maybe if I had fast, open, windy roads in the Alps, I might use it, but for the type of riding I did here in the UK, I don't think it added to my experience. It also has automatic stability control, which is a type of traction control, and engine drag control. I don't think automatic stability control kicked in once while I had the bike, but you can feel the engine drag control kicking in as you're going down the box. Basically, it stops the rear wheel from skidding if you change down too quick. The different rider modes have different levels of automatic stability control and engine drag control. It's actually quite a flexible engine in my mind. When I rode it, personally, I had 2 modes that I enjoyed the most. The first mode was what I call very restrained, where I really nursed the bike through the gears and just used the torque to pull me along really down low in the rev range. My second mode was called slightly unrestrained, where I got up it a bit, but still I didn't push the engine to the max. Thank you to Insta360 for sponsoring this video production. Insta360 also recently sent us one of their new X4 360 cameras to try out. We use loads of different cameras on the channel and have really enjoyed using the X4 in our shoots. If you're into this sort of thing, you might also like to watch a video I produced called Insta360 X4, my top 7 shots on a motorcycle. Insta360 regularly run promotions on their cameras and other products. If you're interested in buying this camera or anything else, I've put a link to them in the video's description so you can check out what they've got going on now. Dark chrome exhaust is very quiet, and I enjoyed that it wasn't too loud. Pop and Burble fans will not be disappointed here on the Overrun. The engine's torquey, but I thought it would have more torque. Reason I say that is because I found myself changing a lot to keep in the meat of the torque zone. In both my personal riding modes, I would change up well before the bike hits the red line. Gearbox is 6-speed and the clutch is a single dry plate. Heel and toe gear shifter on the bike absolutely suited the way I like to stamp on the gears. I've seen some other reviewers where they've had to work on their technique to change gears on the bike. No need, just lift your foot up and stamp it down or up. Gearbox isn't clunky, but it's mechanical and I didn't find any false neutrals. Reverse gear is an option on this bike and it's definitely worth adding that if you're going to buy it. Ran on the channel tested the standard R18 option 719 version of the bike back in the summer. Here she is showing us how to reverse the bike.
So I'll just show you where that reverse gear is on this bike. You've got this little lever down here and all you have to do to knock it into reverse is push that right down. It'll engage. You won't be able to put the bike into gear once this is there. And then you just come up to here and you click this ignition button, away you zoom.
If you want to see Ren's take on the bike, you can check her video out over on the channel. Her video is called BMW R18, Ren rides it and gives her pros and cons review. Single plate clutch was light enough and I didn't feel it was heavy to my hand. Final drive is via this nickel plated shaft. Yeah, the bike rocks to the left on startup and when you're matching revs going down the box, but I'm not going to go into that too much. Suffice to say it's there and it's very enjoyable. The engine does vibrate a lot. And I didn't get numb hands on the motorway, so in my mind, it's a good vibration. When you're riding, it looks like the engine's going to scrape when you're cornering, but that doesn't happen. Anyway, the footboards are going to scrape before the cylinder does, so that's your warning. Although the cylinders are in front of your feet, they don't get hot, and the air and oil cooling keeps the cylinders running at a good temperature. The top speed of the bike is 111 miles an hour. Oh yeah, and the bike can be made A2 compliant if you're a new rider. The BMW R18's double loop steel frame uses two continuous steel loops to cradle the engine. Toolboxes behind the side panel here and the shock preload can be adjusted using this nut with a socket. Pair drop fuel tank holds 16 litres. No fuel gauge, but there's a fuel light when you've got 4 litres left. There's no distance to empty either, so you're going to have to gauge your fuel the old-fashioned way with a trip meter. The wet weight of the bike is 374 kilograms. And the bike is a handful at very slow speeds and when you're pushing around with the engine off. When you put the side stand down, the bike does lean into it a bit, so it leans over a touch more than you think it's going to, but then it locks in place so it can't come up. No screen on the bike and you do get blown about on the motorway a bit, but it's the same with any bike without a screen. I rode the bike here at the start of winter and I did do some long stretches on the motorway. I did notice the wind in my face, but also there's a lot of wind in your crotch coming around the fuel tank. Although the bike can change direction fairly quickly, I did get caught out 2 significant times where I found myself going way too wide on corners and I wasn't even going really fast. The weight just caught me off guard. After each time, I did have to tell myself to take it a little bit easier on the bat bike, Batman. Probably shouldn't have had to tell myself a second time. Anyway. I had the bike for a couple of weeks and I didn't clean it, and this is what it looked like at the end. Very long wheelbase on this old girl at 2,615 centimeters. To put that into perspective, the wheelbase on the R12 Roadster is 2,130 centimeters. So the R18 is actually about half a meter longer than that R12. Standard R18 has foot pegs, but this one's got foot boards, which I prefer for this style of bike. It gives you slightly more positions to put your feet if they get uncomfortable. Wheels are cast aluminium, front's 21 inch and the rear's 18. These wheels are larger than the standard R18, so the bike rides a bit higher. Standard one runs 19 front, 16 back. A standout feature of this bike is its luggage space, which is 27 litres. The cases are lovely and deep and have made riding around on this bike much more enjoyable because I haven't had to use my backpack to carry things. Black paintwork you see here is standard on the Roctane and it's called Black Storm Metallic, but there's also Mineral Grey Metallic Matte and Manhattan Metallic Matte Finish paints as well. Seat height is 720mm. The Roctane's Mini Ape handlebars, mid-mounted footboards and low seat height give it a casual and relaxed riding position. I'm 6'1" with long arms and legs and I sort of feel when I'm riding it that I'm squatting on it a little bit. BMW call this an active riding position and I guess it's got to be like that because you can't put your feet where the cylinders are. It's not uncomfortable, just different, and I enjoyed it. I like that BMW has held back with the technology on this bike, but it does have cruise control and keyless ignition. All lights are LED. Analog speedo is integrated into the headlights nacelle. When you first look at the speedo needle, you think that it's not accurate because there's so much of a slant on the clock, but it's designed in such a way that it actually does work.
Just going to go over the controls with you really quick. So up here, lights, high beam, low beam. Cruise control settings here, set and resume. Traction control on and off. Hazards on and off. Menu, modes, that's the riding modes. Indicators, horn. Over here up the top you've got heated grips, on and off. Key has to be in your pocket or close to you for that to work. And then stop and then start there. This also activates reverse as well. Just going to show you through the modes. So you've got rock, rain, roll. Now I'll go through the menu items with you. So RPM, time, grams per hour. I think that's to do with fuel. I'll put that on screen. Average MPG, 46, not too bad. Date, battery voltage, average miles per hour. This is a trip that resets every 6 hours. This is like just a basic trip. I've just reset it to 0. Miles on the bike. In here you can go into setup. Front tyre pressure. Rear tyre pressure. Back to RPM.
The bike you see here is optioned with heated grips, hill start control, tyre pressure monitors, headlight pro, reverser and an alarm. I think I'd add all these things if I was speccing it up. I don't usually use hill start control or a reverser, but this bike is quite hefty and I think the options would come in handy, especially the reverser. I think that's actually all I'd add to the bike aside from a quickly detachable windscreen for highway use. Controls, seat and build quality on this bike are all first class. Didn't get a sore bum on the ride either, so the seat's good. BMW press release on the bike says that the suspension deliberately doesn't feature any electronic adjustment. Forks have a 49mm diameter and 120mm of travel. BMW call the rear shock a central spring strut and it's got 90mm of travel with adjustable preload. The bike does ride on the firm side and there's no adjustment for compression or rebound, but I don't think it needs it. I didn't bottom the forks or the back shock once, nor did they crash on any potholes. Front brake has two 4-piston calipers and the discs are 300mm. Rear brake has a single 4-piston caliper and the disc is also 300mm. Of course there's ABS and the bike has what's called fully integral brakes, which means that both brakes are applied when the front brake is applied. When using the rear brake by itself, the front brake isn't applied. Although I knew it had integral brakes when I was riding around, the application of the rear brake was actually quite subtle when you just use the front brake, and I don't think it's a good way to brake because it just gives you bad habits. When I use the brakes on the bike, I use them both at the same time like I do normally. To make the brakes work, you've really got to stamp on them hard, and the front brake could actually use a bit more power. I used the hill start on the bike if I was pulled up and I found it really useful. To use it, you just stamp on the rear brake twice and it goes on. It goes off when you take off again. Website or manual doesn't state which tyres come on the bike, but this one had Metzeler ME AAA Manhattan Ultras. They seem to be a good fit for the bike to me. Service intervals are once a year or every 6,000 miles. The base cost for the Roctane is $22,100, but the version you see here with all the options listed above comes in at £24,060. As usual with this style of bike, people have been actively complimenting me on my bike, and I have to accept their compliments, and then I have to tell them that it's a press bike from BMW and I don't own it, so I don't feel like a phony. Then that starts a whole other layer of dialogue as to why I have the bike, and I feel like a bit of a broken record saying the same old story about the YouTube channel. Anyway, I like the Roctane, and if you like the look of it, I would urge you to go and try it to see if it suits your style of riding. That's it. Thanks for watching.